Are you thinking about taking a road trip across the Nullarbor? It's not as intimidating as some might think. And I have some tips that can help make your journey smoother. Plus I'll fill you in on the villages and some attractions along the way. One thing to keep in mind is that you'll be crossing multiple time zones, so it's a good idea to double check that your phone's time is accurate. And some villages along the way also use their own time zones which are not official time zones. So be sure to plan accordingly. If you're travelling west, you'll gain time each day, and if you're travelling east, you'll lose time. As for the road itself, it's relatively easy to drive on. The terrain is mostly flat the entire way across, with 2 small inclines and a long steep descent into Perth down Greenmount Hill. Be aware that not all service stations in remote areas are open for 24 hours. However, many of them do offer 24-hour self-service using a credit card. So plan your fuel stops accordingly if you plan to be driving late at night or early in the morning. If you're travelling with an RV or caravan, many caravan parks offer drive-through bays, so you won't need to unhitch overnight. However, these parks are very basic and often just offer a paddock of compacted earth as a base. In the remote areas, they provide powered sites but don't have water facilities for RVs. They do have shower and toilet facilities that are also often shared with truck drivers crossing the continent. Free camping areas are also available, but they only offer toilet facilities. Now let's talk about some of the major towns and stops along the way. The first major town you'll come across is Port Wakefield, about 100 kilometres and just over an hour's drive north of Adelaide. Originally called Port Henry, this was the first township established north of Adelaide. Port Wakefield is home to a thriving local agricultural industry and has all the facilities you'd expect in a small town, including motels, caravan parks, restaurants, and 24-hour fuel stops. Further up the road, you'll reach Port Pirie, about 130 kilometres away. You'll pass a large salt lake, and as you approach, you'll catch a glimpse of the Flinders Ranges in the east. Founded in 1845, Port Pirie is South Australia's second largest port and is known for handling wheat and rare earths. The town's site is 4 kilometres west of the Augusta highway and has several motels, caravan parks, 24-hour fuel stops and restaurants. And there are roadhouses just north and south of Port Pirie on the highway. And these are open from 6 a.m. till 11 p.m. About 90 kilometres and an hour's drive north of Port Pirie, past a major wind farm, you'll find Port Augusta, a major road and railway junction city. This town spans the top of Spencer Gulf. It has a major regional hospital and is the state headquarters for the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Port Augusta has several motels, caravan parks, 24-hour fuel stops, restaurants and fast food outlets. As you head west from Port Augusta, you'll pass through more wind farms and head across the top of the Eyre Peninsula towards Eyre Knob, which is about 70 kilometres and 50 minutes away. After 20 kilometres, keep an eye out for where the Eyre Highway turns right to Eyre Knob and Western Australia. If you miss the turn, you'll head towards Whyalla, and this turn can be easy to miss. Eyre Knob is where the Australian steel industry began, and you can spot the Iron Monarch outcrop from several kilometres away. If you're thinking about camping near Eyre Knob, there's an unpowered camping area just a kilometre south of the Eyre Highway. But remember, there aren't any fuel or food options in town. An hour down the road, you'll reach Kimber, which is known as the halfway point across Australia from the east coast to the west coast, and is home to the Big Galah. It's a major wheat producing area. Check out the giant mural on the grain silo in town. This can be viewed from Railway Terrace, but not from the Eyre Highway. If you're low on fuel, don't worry, there's a 24-hour fuel station in Kimber, on the west side of the town, next to the motel and caravan park. Kimber Recreation Reserve offers free pet-friendly camping and has all the amenities you need, including a coin-operated shower. Next up is Caiguna, about 90 kilometres away, where you'll pass through wheat fields and see the Goyder's Line monument. This commemorates the line drawn by surveyor General Goyder in 1865 that defined the boundary between areas of reasonable and minimal and marginal rainfall. Once you arrive, there's a general store with 24-hour fuel. If you keep driving, you'll reach Wadena, which is about 12 kilometres further west and has a roadhouse that's open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m, as well as a caravan park, motel, restaurant and small hospital. Ceduna, which is the last major town before crossing the Nullarbor, is 220 kilometres west of Caiguna. You'll find several motels, caravan parks, 24-hour fuel stops, restaurants and fast food outlets. At Ceduna, there's even a district hospital in town. The main fuel stop is on the western side of the town. As you continue driving, you'll pass the Ceduna quarantine station, where all vehicles entering South Australia from the west are checked for fruit and vegetables. From here, the countryside gradually changes from farmland to savanna as you make your way to Penong, about 75 kilometres away. Penong has a caravan park with overnight cabins. The small shop in Penong has a sign that warns it's the last shop for 1,000 kilometres, but there are plenty of roadhouses selling goods along the way. You can also get fuel at the Roadhouse between 5 a.m. and midnight. From here on, the stops for the next 1,100 kilometres to Norseman offer essentially the same facilities: a roadhouse and service station, a restaurant and bar, a motel, and a caravan park. The Nullarbor Roadhouse is 220 kilometres further west on the Nullarbor Plain, and you'll see a road grid about halfway there that signals the crossing of the dingo fence, which runs 5,500 kilometres from near the Sunshine Coast in Queensland to the Great Australia Bight. It protects farm animals in the east from dingoes. You'll also pass the Eucla Indigenous Settlement, which has a caravan park and an arts centre. The Nullarbor Roadhouse on the Nullarbor Plain has fuel available from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m, but make sure you arrive before 8 if you want a motel room. The next roadhouse village is Border Village, 190 kilometres and 2 hours drive away on the South Australian side of the South Australia and West Australian border. Along the way, you'll enjoy some spectacular sea cliff views, because this part of the drive tracks very close to the Great Australian Bight. Here are a number of parking areas for you to take a closer look. When you reach Border Village, you'll find a 24-hour roadhouse and service station, a bar, a motel, and a caravan park. Before crossing the border into Western Australia, you'll need to stop at the Western Australian Quarantine Station, where vehicles are searched for banned fruits and vegetables. Once you cross the border, you'll drive for an hour and cover 100 kilometres to reach Mundrabilla Roadhouse. On the way, you'll pass Eucla, about 20 kilometres past the border. Eucla was originally established in 1877 as a repeater station for the cross-country telegraph line. It also has the normal roadhouse village facilities, but the roadhouse and service station have limited opening hours. Eucla also has a police station, and the officers from here regularly patrol the highway near Eucla for speedsters. This drive includes the descent of the Eucla Pass, which drops 70 metres down to the road plain and offers panoramic views on the way down. Once on the road plain, which was an early source of sandalwood, the escarpment of the Hampton tablelands follows on the north of the Eyre highway for the next 200 kilometres. Mundrabilla Roadhouse is a typical Eyre highway roadhouse village and is open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. But be aware that it only supplies diesel, not ULP petrol. Next up is Madura, which is 100 kilometres and 1 hour west of Mundrabilla and sits halfway up the Madura Pass, which raises the Eyre highway 90 metres from the road plains to the top of the Hampton tablelands. Madura Roadhouse is open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. As you leave Madura, be sure to take in stunning views from the lookout over the road plains at the top of the Madura Pass. And when you reach Cocklebiddy, keep an eye out for Samantha and Bruce, the two wedge-tailed eagles who have made their home there with the proprietors who rescued them from the roadside. Cocklebiddy is open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Caiguna is only 65 kilometres and a 40-minute drive away from Cocklebiddy through the savannah landscape. The Caiguna Roadhouse is open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Did you know that the Eyre Highway is home to the longest straight stretch of road in the Southern Hemisphere? That's right. The 90-mile, 147-kilometre straightaway begins after Caiguna and continues for most of the 180-kilometre trip to Balladonia, which is the closest settlement to where the Skylab crashed in 1979. This historic area has been a prosperous wool-producing region for over a century. Balladonia is the last roadhouse village on the Eyre Highway before Norseman and is open from 5:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Be sure to check out the Balladonia Roadhouse Museum for some interesting artefacts. As you continue your journey to Norseman, which is 190 kilometres away, you'll notice the landscape becoming more undulating, and the drive passes through the great western woodlands with its golden trees. Norseman has plenty of amenities to offer, including the district hospital. Once you make it to Norseman, you have two options for getting to Perth. The southern route is a 1,200 kilometre drive that will take you through the beautiful southwest of Australia. However, the more popular and shorter route is a 720 kilometre northern route through Coolgardie, which is only 170 kilometres north. One thing you'll notice along the way is the Perth to Goldfields pipeline, which brings water into the area. This pipeline follows the road for the next 700 kilometres to Mundaring in the Perth Hills. The drive to Coolgardie passes the 1,000 square kilometre Lake Cowan Salt Lake and the slightly smaller Lefroy Salt Lake. Coolgardie is a historic town known for starting the largest mass migration of people in Australia's history during the gold rush of 1892. It offers all the facilities of a small town and has fuel available from 4 a.m. until 11 p.m. From Coolgardie, head west 190 kilometres on the Great Eastern Highway to Southern Cross. There are plenty of amenities in Southern Cross, including a district hospital. Next up, after 110 kilometres, is Merredin, located in the heart of West Australia's central wheat belt. Keep an eye out for the rabbit-proof fence designed to keep pests out of crops to the west. The fence stretches over 3,000 kilometres from the northwest coast to the southern coast. Merredin has fuel available from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. The Great Eastern Highway continues on through wheatfields to Northam, which is 160 kilometres and 1 hour 45 minutes further west. On the north side of the road, at Cunderdin, The Ettamogah Pub, complete with a truck on the roof, is a highlight of this part of the trip. Northam, which is 4 kilometres south on the highway, is the largest inland rural town in Western Australia that's not dependent on mining. Finally, your journey from east to west will end 100 kilometres away in Perth, but not before you cross the Avon River and traverse through the Perth Hills. The entrance to Perth is down Greenmount Hill on the Darling Scarp, which descends 185 metres in a 4-kilometre drive at grades of up to 10% and offers a stunning view of the Swan Coastal Plain and the Perth CBD in the distance.